I've got some really bad operator line, the purchase line on my ropes here. You can see how bad this one is. It's got some fraying. It's just really bad. So I'm going to change this out. I got some new rope in and we're going to make it all nice and fresh. All of my ropes are pretty much at the end of their life. I'd be curious to know what you all use out there as the general lifespan of your purchase lines. I'm thinking 15 to 20 years is probably a reasonable lifespan. I've been here at these venues for 15 years. The ropes in the bigger space were fairly new at that time. I think these were older and they're definitely showing signs of wear. And we can see some of the age of this one. They're just really getting dirty and beat up and just unhappy. This is our space. It's only about 15 feet high and it's real easy to do this one person. Our bigger space has a 50-foot grid and needs to have a couple people doing this task. All right, here's what 20-year-old gaffer's tape looks like, and not my favorite thing to do. It's really dry and brittle and really crackly, and gaffer's tape will leave residue if you leave it on something long term. That includes spike tape as well. Obviously, this rope is going to be all going away. I could probably just cut it, but I want to use the rope as a measure for how long I'm supposed to trim my rope. This was a really sloppy way to trim this. This was an extra long tail, so they just decided to fold it up and just gaff tape the hell out of it. And that's really sloppy. They should have just trimmed it there and made it shorter and be done with it. Oh, and the gaff tape is a secondary taping to fold up that long tail. This is friction tape underneath there. That was the original installer's way of cleaning it up. All right, we got that rope out. Let's measure it and cut a new one. Looks like my old rope is 41 feet 8 inches. I could go 42 to leave myself a little extra room, but this one already had a little bit of extra. So we're just gonna go 41 feet 8 inches. There's my brand new spool of multi-line. I've washed my hands. Every time I handle something dirty, I'm gonna wash my hands so I don't get it all over the brand new multi-line. Marking my new rope for about 41 feet 8 inches to the cutting tool. Should be going back and forth to cut it. There we go. All right, turn it on. Feeding the rope through the head block. Some of our line sets were finished with bowlines, and bowlines are not acceptable. They aren't quite as strong as the half hitches, so we do a couple of half hitches and then tidy up the cable. You want to get your knots fairly snug. The rope will stretch out a little bit as you put it under tension for the first time, so you might not get it tight enough the very first time, and then you'll just have to retie one of the knots and refinish it. And yes, these turnbuckles are not moused properly. You're not supposed to run one big mousing through the thing and go through the whole thing. You're supposed to mouse the bottom half and mouse the top half separately. I think I had to replace this turnbuckle, and that's why this one is moused properly. The bottom one is moused separately, and the top one is moused separately. Don't mouse the two together. That's not proper mousing. There are fancier mousing techniques for turnbuckles for sailing. We're not doing sailing. This is totally sufficient for our theatrical applications. I do have another technique where I like to go around here and pinch that down as the final finishing option. I'll show you one of those on the other line sets we did a few weeks ago. Make sure the lock ring is back in place before we feed it through. Feed it through the tension block and bring it back up and over, and now I can terminate it on the bottom of the arbor. There's my two half hitches. I've got a little bit of extra long tail here, and I'm just going to let that ride while I test it before I trim it off. And when I get it all good and I'm happy with it, I'll probably trim it off to there and then finish the ends. Now my tension block is high. All I have to do is loosen that up, bring the tension block down, and we should be good to go. I've run the line set a few times, and every time I get done running it, it feels a little bit loose, so I tighten up the tension block a little bit. So we'll probably have to give this some time to stretch out and probably have to come back and retension that tension block a few times in the near future. These floor-mounted tension blocks aren't all weight-driven like the other line sets we have in the other space. So in order to adjust or tighten tension, I have to loosen up that lever and drop the tension down.